So I have text number 7 in chapter 4. Does that look like, or am I in the right chapter at least? No one remembers? I think that's about right. Anyway, it's a good verse. Okay. We'll be studying page 190. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 29th day of April 2019 in SanDiego, we're reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 4 entitled Transcendental Knowledge, text number 7, page 190. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam dharmasya tadatmanam svrjamyaham. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam dharmasya tadatmanam svrjamyaham. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam dharmasya tadatmanam svrjamyaham. Go ahead, Damodar. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam dharmasya tadatmanam svrjamyaham. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam dharmasya tadatmanam svrjamyaham. Marcy? Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam dharmasya tadatmanam svrjamyaham. I don't suppose you want to give a shot at it, huh? Okay. All right, let me read the word by words. Yada yada, whenever and wherever, he, certainly, dharmasya, of religion, glanihi, discrepancies, bhavati, become manifested, bharata, O descendant of Bharat, abhyuttanam, predominance, adharmasya, of irreligion, tada, at that time, atmanam, self, svrjami, manifest, aham, I. Translation: whenever and wherever, Krishna speaking to Arjuna, whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharat, and the predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Purport: the word svrjami is significant herein. Svrjami cannot be used in the sense of creation, because, according to the previous verse, there is no creation of the Lord's form or body, since all of the forms are eternally existent. Therefore, svrjami means that the Lord manifests himself as he is. Although the Lord appears on schedule, namely at the end of the Dwapara Yuga, of the 28th millennium of the 7th Manu in one day of Brahma, he has no obligation to adhere to such rules and regulations, because he is completely free to act in any way he wants. He therefore appears by his own will whenever there is a predominance of irreligiosity and a disappearance of true religion. Principles of religion are laid down in the Vedas, and any discrepancy in the matter of properly executing the rules of the Vedas makes one irreligious. In the Bhagavatam it is stated that such principles are the laws of the Lord. Only the Lord can manufacture a system of religion. The Vedas are also accepted as originally spoken by the Lord himself to Brahma, from within the heart, from within his heart. Therefore, the principles of dharma, or religion, are the direct orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or religion, direct orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. These principles are clearly indicated throughout the Bhagavad Gita. The purpose of the Vedas is to establish such principles under the order of the Supreme Lord, and the Lord directly orders at the end of the Gita that the highest principle of religion is to surrender unto Him only and nothing more. The Vedic principles push one toward complete surrender unto Him, and whenever such principles are disturbed by the demoniac, the Lord appears. From the Bhagavatam we understand that Lord Buddha is the incarnation of Krishna, who appeared when materialism was rampant and materialists were using the pretext of the authority of the Vedas. Although there are certain restrictive rules and regulations regarding animal sacrifice for particular purposes in the Vedas, people of demoniac tendencies still took to animal sacrifice without reference to the Vedic principles. Lord Buddha appeared in order to stop this nonsense and to establish the Vedic principles of nonviolence. Therefore, each and every avatar, or incarnation of the Lord, has a particular mission, and they are all described in the revealed scriptures. No one should be accepted as an avatar unless he is referred to by scriptures. It is not a fact that the Lord appears only on Indian soil. He can manifest himself anywhere and everywhere, and whenever he desires to appear. In each and every incarnation, he speaks as much about religion as can be understood by the particular people under their particular circumstances. But the mission is the same: to lead people to God consciousness and obedience to the principles of religion. Sometimes he descends personally, and sometimes he sends his bona fide representative in the form of his son or servant, or himself in some disguised form. The principles of the Bhagavad Gita were spoken to Arjuna, and for that matter to other highly elevated persons, because he was highly advanced compared to ordinary persons in other parts of the world. 2 + 2 = 4 is a mathematical principle that is true in the beginner's arithmetic class and in the advanced class as well. Still, there are higher and lower mathematics. In all incarnations of the Lord, therefore, the same principles are taught, but they appear to be higher and lower in varied circumstances. The higher principles of religion begin with the acceptance of the 4 orders and the 4 statuses of social life, as will be explained later. The whole purpose of the mission of incarnations is to arouse Krishna consciousness everywhere. Such consciousness is manifest and non-manifest only under different circumstances. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this chapter begins with some explanation of how the Bhagavad Gita came to be. The first verse talks about how Krishna says he spoke this Bhagavad Gita millions of years earlier to the sun god, who then spoke it to his son Manu, Vaivasvata Manu, and he came down into human society, and Ikshvaku, who was a great king, and then came down and down and down in that way, in human society. But then the second verse speaks about how it's been broken, it's been lost. The actual Dharma that Krishna spoke is lost because of the vicissitudes of time. This is what happens in the material world. Material world is by nature a world of rebellion. It's actually created by the Lord to give a place where those who don't want to be God conscious, Krishna conscious, surrender to Him, can have a place to enact their pastimes, if you will, their activities, and eventually learn that it's not a place of happiness, that this isn't what we should do. And so he's speaking about that, and then Arjuna has a question. And his question, well, how can that be? Because he said you spoke to the sun god. But at least externally, Arjuna and Krishna are contemporaries. They're about the same age. So Arjuna, representing us, he's drawing out of Krishna the explanation of his appearance, how he spoke this to the sun god millions of years ago, and he can remember that because he doesn't change. This is the big difference. God is eternal, and He's pure spirit. And even we don't change in our spiritual identity. But because we're minute, we seem to be changing. There's a difference between ourselves and our body. Certainly the body's constantly changing and is moving toward destruction. But the soul is not changing. The soul is, the spirit, the consciousness remains the same. This is the first lesson in Krishna consciousness, in spiritual life. But it's a complete mystery, because this is the world, especially this age, Kali Yuga, where people have no idea. They have no idea about their spiritual identity. And even though some may think, yes, there's some eternal life in God, but the fact that they're not the body, that the body is simply a very temporary arrangement of matter to fulfill activities that we did in previous life, and the whole science of reincarnation, it's a complete mystery. Because if that were understood, then everything would change. Then the whole calculation of what is good to do and what is not good to do and how to live life and what the purpose of life is would take a different turn. So this world is a world of ignorance, but Krishna is tied to this world. In other words, one of the basic principles of the Bhagavad Gita is that we have this connection to the supreme absolute truth, the supreme consciousness, and we are in the nature of part and parcel, meaning that we're like the rays of the sun, or we're like the drop in the ocean. We have the qualities, but not the quantity. We're minute. But we do have the qualities. And Krishna claims in the 14th chapter that aham bija pradakpita, that I am the father of every living entity. This is another important aspect of the vision taught by the Bhagavad Gita, that we have a relationship with every living thing. There's all of the differences that we perceive are due to the external body. But it's just like seeing a crowd of people and taking it supremely seriously what coat they're wearing. They're wearing the blue coats and they're wearing the red coats, and that's what really matters. Well, that doesn't matter. What's the difference? The blue coats can take off the blue coat and put on a red coat. So it's the ignorance of what the truth is. Now we see, it's not just the question of the coat. This whole body is a coat. It's an external covering on the soul, and it's a very temporary one. And when we see everyone as a spirit, then we see the kinship. If Krishna claims all of us as children, then He's the Supreme Father. Every religion has that idea. But that means of everyone. And so what's the root, the basis of all of the discord and the fighting and it's all based on ignorance. We have that eternal kinship as children of God, so to speak. And that's the only true basis of peace and brotherhood in this world. Otherwise, it's going to keep going with all the quarrel and destruction and war. So the point is that Krishna recognizes us as wayward children, and we need Dharma in order to guide us back to the good, eternal, peaceful world, back to Godhead. And that's why He comes. That's explained in the verse we read today. Now, before He did that, there were several verses explaining His birth in contrast to ours. Bahuni me vatitani janmani. I've had many, many births. This is text 5. I can remember them, but you can't. And Prabhupada makes the point, why can't we remember? Because our body's always changing. If we were completely spiritual, then our consciousness wouldn't. We would be able to remember also. But we're not like that, so we're covered. So we forget completely what happened in our previous life and most of what happened in this life. I mean, how much can we really remember over the years? Right? There are certain high points you can remember as you get older, and certain things fade away into oblivion. And sometimes, frighteningly, things had just happened a little while ago, you can't remember anything. Well, I'm really, getting senile. So that's the way it is in the material world. But Krishna doesn't forget. He knows everything. So He's unborn, His body doesn't deteriorate. He's the Lord of all beings, and he's situated in this, he enters into this world on his own will, Atma Maya. We don't enter on our own will. We're forced to come. According to our activities, we have no idea. You know, and if we act in a most vicious way, in a completely vikarmic way, then we'll very likely lose this human form. We won't die. As I meant, you know, everybody dies, nobody dies. Everybody. It's important to know that the way you pronounce the word E-V-E-R-Y-B-O-D-Y, it's everybody. It's not everybody. No one says everybody. If you look up in the dictionary. So the way the poem goes is everybody dies, nobody dies. You see the difference? There's a space there. Everybody dies, nobody dies. Wake up and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. There's a lot in that little ditty. So, but when you talk about Krishna, the body never dies. He's not different from the body. So that's the categorical difference between us. So he comes on his own will. Why would he come? You know, if we had our druthers, we would, you know, why would we be born in this world? You know, Kali Yuga. We'd want to go at least to the heavenly planets, right? But we don't have our druthers. We're acting and we don't know the results of our activities. It's all higher forces. What is that? Karmana daivanetrena jantur dehopapatye. This is Kapila Dev. Karmana daivanetrena means the vision or the overseeing of Daiva. It includes the Supreme Lord, the Super Soul, and all of the demigods. There's this whole hierarchy deciding exactly where we're going to go, according to everything we've done. We don't know. You think you can do whatever you want. Who's going to say no? Well, first of all, nature is the first thing that is restricting us. I mean, you learn that as a little child. Why are you holding me back? Well, there's a fire there. You want to go to the fire. You don't know that it's the dangerous. So the mother holds the child back. You're restricting me. The point is that by knowledge, you know how to act and how not to act. For your long-term benefit, not for your immediate pleasure. This thing is still not working, huh? Can someone manually? No, too slowly. Way too slowly. Can you someone stand? Someone who has young legs can get up. All right, she's fixing it. I talked to him yesterday. At the festival. Yes, just now coming. Fine. Hare Krishna. All right, so Krishna comes on his own. He acts on his own for our benefit. Then he explains in the verse we read today. So let's go to that one. Yada yada hi dharma saglanir. What is this dharma? That is a key question. From the beginning of the Gita, from the beginning of Mahabharata, it is a key question. Because without dharma, human life is no better than animal life. So dharma is commonly defined as religion. Here it is defined as religion. But the English word religion doesn't exactly correspond with dharma. Dharma is a set of, one meaning of dharma is a set of rules and regulations, means do's and don'ts, that are meant to bring you to a certain point. And that point means more to your, bringing you closer and closer to your real nature. The root of the word dharma, you know, Sanskrit is a very scientific language. Every word has a certain root. And that root produces different varieties of words. Just like the word shastra. You know, shastra means the good book, all right, the scripture. There's also a word shastra. The long and the shorts make a big difference. Shastra is a weapon. And shishya has the same root. Now, what does the shastra, and the shishya have in common? Any idea? If you didn't hear Prabhupada explain it, you wouldn't know. So, they all have to do with control. A shishya is a disciple. He agrees voluntarily to be controlled by this spiritual master, the guru. This word comes up in the Gita in a very key verse, 2nd chapter, 7th verse, where Arjuna surrenders to Krishna as his guru. Arjuna says, Karpanya doshopahata svabhava, which really means that due to this miserly weakness, karpanya dosha, which is a fault of mine, my actual nature has been eclipsed. Swabhava. His nature as a very courageous, eager to fight Kshatriya. Kshatriyas are eager for a fight. He's lost that. He's paralyzed on the chariot, right? That's the whole setting. So he says, oh, this is horrible. And I don't know what to do about it. I can't fix it. Pritchami tvam dharma samuda cheta. Here, the dharma samuda cheta. Here's the word dharma. So I'm asking you, please, to am bewildered about dharma. Dharma meaning the right thing to do, the best thing to do. I can't see it. He's admitting he's covered by his emotional ties to members of the other side. Imagine if you're about to fight a war and you find out that your brother's on the other side, and your cousin, and all the people who you love. That's going to really mess up your will to fight. And that's exactly what happened to Arjuna. So the whole thing about Dharma comes up right in this verse. And in fact, the whole Mahabharata is keyed on Dharma. What's the right thing to do? You know, I mean, should the Pandavas have the kingdom, or should, Dhritarashtra, there's some confusion there. And so Dharma is key. So then he says, Yakshe yaksyanishtitam bruhitanme. This is another key word, Shreya. Shreya means the ultimate good. Sometimes it's nikshreya, but in this context, Shreya alone. Means the ultimate good, not just the immediate good. Shreyas and prayas. Prayas means the immediate good. What feels good? And maybe if you read the old books, you remember we went through the hippie days, you remember that? If it feels good, do it, right? This is an act of rebellion against the uptight generation, Levittown, very straight-laced, after the war, World War II. So the generation that came after that, we didn't know about the war. But we wanted to break out, it was like we felt too restricted. So if it feels good, do it. That's an infant's mentality. If it feels good, do it. Yeah, what about the reaction? That may not feel so good. The old kid putting his hand in the fire in the fan, right? So the idea is that by knowledge, from people who have experienced, such as the good in Scripture, but just ordinary knowledge, you can be taught things. You don't have to experience all the pain and suffering. You can understand from your intelligence. So, so Dharma is something that comes from Krishna. That's mentioned in this purport. Because how are we supposed to know? I mean, I had no idea about anything spiritual, soul, and everything. I was completely, I didn't even believe in God. I'm raised as a Marxist. Who's raised as a Marxist these days? It's like totally not. But the idea was that was supposedly for the good of the people. My father was actually a philanthropist. He thought that this was what people really needed. Growing up in the 30s, the New York, the labor movement and everything, it grew out of that. But anyway, so I had no idea about God or spirit or this or that, and I went astray, and I, suffering. There's a lot of suffering. So Krishna is saying here, yes, the people are suffering, and they're my praja, they're my children. So therefore I come when there's a question of dharma glani. Glani means the discrepancy in dharma. So Arjuna had the same question. So Krishna, he's asking Krishna, you tell me what's good for me. Meaning that dharma can lead you to Shreya. Actual dharma, the proper thing to do, leads you to the ultimate good. Now the ultimate good is infinite happiness and zero distress. What is that? That's actually the goal. We're all striving for it. Even the lower animals. They don't think about it. But if something looks pleasurable, go for it. If something is painful, get away from it or kill it. In other words, maximizing happiness, minimizing distress. That's what we're all about. Because we are part and parcel of Krishna, who is Anandamaya Vyasad. Anandamaya means made of bliss. Why would God be anything else? Of course he's going to maximize his own happiness. But because the real happiness comes from relationship and loving relationship, therefore we're part of that happiness. But we had another idea. And so we decided to separate ourselves. And therefore we're experiencing fear and death and birth. And then, the other one, good one. What's the other one? Disease. Old age, birth, old age, disease, and death. That's not happiness. We want to try to get away from those, right? But you can't. Because if you identify with this body, you're going to go through those. So there's a limit. There's a very top limit, ceiling, with how much pleasure you can get in this lifetime. And out of ignorance, you try to go for the immediate pleasure or a little long-range pleasure, But it always, always, always comes out a failure. Because no matter how much you get in terms of sensual pleasure or money or fame or respect or knowledge or anything, it always decreases and is destroyed by the passage of time. And here you are, you're still living, you're still conscious. What happened? What happened to all those people I used to love? What my children? Why I have so much money, but it's not, it's useless. What about this disease? I just learned to have that, It happened. That's going to happen. Unless you have another source of happiness, which is not bounded by time and the material energy. That's the ultimate happiness. So Krishna comes to teach us that. Whenever there's Dharma Siglani, look around you. Even on an ordinary plane, we think of religion, okay, Christianity and Islam and Judaism, in the West, there are more and more people are not going to church. It's a fact over the years. People are not identifying with any established religion. Young people. Any institution, you have to have new young people coming in or it dies. That's not rocket science. So the churches are up for sale, many of them. Many of our temples were once churches, Hopefully we're not going to also have to sell the temple. But, the point is that it's Kali Yuga, and there's so much confusion, and there seems to be, the illusion that we can control nature, AI, right? Artificial intelligence is going to take over everything, But in the United States of America, they measure these things. There's more and more anxiety, more and more discouragement, depression, diseases of despair, they call them. They cause people get into drinking, they get into drugs, the opioids. What is that all coming from? It's coming from the little arrangements for happiness that they make, which is all based on a certain amount of income. That's being destroyed and eroded. Prices are going up, my wages aren't going up. I'm part of the precariat. You know what the precariat is? It used to be something called the proletariat. I learned about that when I was 8 years old. The masses of the workers, the great workers, Well, the precariat means those whose jobs are very precarious. Their financial situation is very precarious. Most of the people in America, a huge percentage, can't even meet a $400 emergency in their lives. Imagine if your whole focus was on material, things and job and everything like that, and that everything was very. You see how your basis of what you consider to be happiness is very precarious. That's tremendous anxiety. Now, as devotees, if we're actually serious and we place our faith in Krishna and take shelter of the holy name, then you don't feel precarious. Because your consciousness is actually based on real foundation, spiritual foundation. That's a reality. And the fear is, bhayam, dutiya, abhinavesha, daksyat. Where does the fear come from? We're talking about different varieties of fear, really. Anxiety and despair and all these different things. It comes from, does anyone know what this verse means, the first line? Bhayam, dutiya, abhinavesha, daksyat. Ishadapeta sivapariyo smriti. Those two lines tell a lot. So bhayam means fear. Dvitiya means something second. It means something separate from the Lord, mainly this material world. When you see this world as something separate from God, you don't even think there is a God, or he doesn't have anything to do with this world, or whatever. And it's just as a field for us to exploit and own. That's Dvitiya. Abhinaveshita means to be absorbed. And a result of Ishadapetasya, but turning away from the Lord, from God. Viparyayo asmati. Viparya means reversed. Instead of seeing ourselves as we truly are, and which is our dharma, which is our eternal nature, as part and parcel of Krishna, as his eternal loving servants, eternal. We never die, and we're eternal loving servants in the spiritual world. We see ourselves as part of this world, and we're trying to eke out our little area of control and enjoyment and exploitation for a few years until it all blows up and we have to take another body. That's where Bhayam comes from. You don't have a foundation. You're not secure. So Krishna. So that's the result. And he says, and what's the cure? It's not rocket science. I mean, when you're turning back toward the Lord and worshiping Him, the one who you forgot. That's the whole point of Bhagavad Gita. Of Krishna saying, Sarva Dharma Parityajya. Give up all these other so-called dharmas. Follow this one real dharma, Sanatana Dharma, eternal dharma, of service to me. Be conscious of me. It's where your mind goes. That's the whole thing. Your mind is absorbed in this matter. Absorb the same mind in Krishna, as has been given by Krishna himself in the Bhagavad Gita and his devotees, and you can cure the disease, and you won't be afraid anymore. You can actually feel secure, even in the holocaust of this world. Yes, death is coming. It's coming to all of us. But it's how you react to it that makes all the difference. So, back to our verse here. Just to finish the verse, Arjun. So he changes the relationship. He says, Yak Shreyaksan Nishtitam. Please tell me for sure how I can achieve my Shreya, my ultimate good, by the means of Dharma, which I've forgotten. I'm completely bewildered now. Shishya steham. Back to the word Shishya. I'm your Shishya. I'm your disciple now, not your friend. Friendly talks, we're not getting anywhere. Krishna's saying one thing, he's arguing back on the friend base. Now I'm not going to argue anymore. Shadimam tampapannam, I surrender to you, please instruct me. So the Shishya means he agrees to be controlled by the words of Krishna or those who are channeling Krishna perfectly without distortion, the pure devotees. The Shastra, another thing, this is absolute knowledge. I'm going to read it, understand it, and follow it. I'm going to, I may want to do this, but I know that's Maya. And Shastra means a weapon. You'd be controlled by a weapon. Perhaps that one's the most easiest to understand. Shastra, and Shishya. So here, in the verse today, Yadayadahi dharmasya glana bhavati bharata. Now, within the purport, he quotes this verse, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat panitam. This is spoken by Yamaraj, where he's describing, how do we know what Dharma is? Where do we go? Well, we first understand that it comes from God, comes from Krishna, and then it's reposed within what they call Mahajans, great souls such as Brahma himself, Narada, Shiva, the four Kumaras, Kapila Dev, Swayambhuva Manu, the Prahlad Maharaj, Janaka, Bhishma, Shukadeva Goswami, and Yamaraj himself. There's 12. And you'll find that the teachings in the Bhagavatam, they're all coming from them. Now sometimes they quote each other, because Shukadeva is speaking, he quotes Narada and everything like that. Narada comes in every canto. He's the most prominent of all 12 in terms of the direct instruction. Of course, the whole thing's being spoken by Shukadeva. So but that's where we have to rely on something. What are you going to rely on as evidence for what Dharma is? What I should do and what I should not do. That's what real Dharma means. So he said, well, I'm not going to worry about this Bhagavad Gita. Well, you have some criterion. Is it just what tastes good? Okay, go down to the to the Ralph's, and walk down the snack section. You get these chips, this soda, right? Maybe an 8-year-old would probably go shopping, and that's what he would get, fill it all up. Let's binge watch, we'll just do the paper chips. Yeah, that'll work maybe for a couple hours. Mommy, I'm sick, right? In other words, huh? Yeah, then mother gives it. So the point is that there's a criterion there, for what's good. It looks good, it tastes good, right? But it's not good for you. So that's more or less what's going on in the material world. It looks good, sounds good, let's get into it. Oh, but now it doesn't end up in a good experience. You get sick, or you just prolong your life in the material world. So what is that criterion? What is that pramana for which can give you the prameya? In other words, the do's and the don'ts and the whys and wherefores of how to act in such a way to reach the platform of eternal happiness and eternal life. Not just flickering pleasure followed by misery. You don't need the Bhagavad Gita to tell you that extreme pleasure is going to bring you extreme misery. Just look around you. Or just consider your life before you came to Krishna consciousness. Looked like a good idea at the time, right? I mean, so many of my contemporaries, from those days. Oh God, the amount of damage that's done by the drinking and the drugs. I mean, nobody starts out wanting to drink this or to imbibe this in order to damage yourself. You're all thinking it's going to make you happy. You're going to be pleasure. I'm hanging out with my friends. And then maybe that night, or maybe months later, or some years later, what did I do to myself? Oh my God, my brain is messed up. That's what sense gratification is, either in short term or long term. So Krishna consciousness is simple, right? There is some austerity involved, right? No intoxication. But you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and you'll find Lord Chaitanya becomes intoxicated with the holy name. The very same things that on the material side produce misery, on the spiritual side produce the greatest bliss. Krishna, the name Krishna, Hare Krishna, this Krishna, Hare Krishna mantra, it's by nature sweet. It's intoxicating. It opens up realms of realization and the truth. But in order to be able to experience it, you have to develop your purity of consciousness, purity of the senses. With these present senses in mind, we cannot understand the real nature of the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna. But if we begin to serve anyway, on the basis of faith in the representative of Krishna and whatever, then Swayam eva sparatada, the Lord himself, on his side, he gradually reveals the nature of everything in relation to him. That's the reality. And then this is the dharma that Krishna comes to give. It's bhakti yoga. That's the dharma there's all kinds of glanis, all kinds of discrepancies in that. And sometimes it can turn into the very opposite, where so-called religion turns into a force for evil in the world. Read the history of the Crusades. Children's crusade? Are you kidding me? A bunch of children going off, to conquer the Holy Land. Most of them just died on the way, got sick. Where does that come from? I'm telling you, there's been a lot of corruption, and the Gaudiya Vaishnavas also had that. What do we got? These upper sampradayas, distortions of That's why there needs to be a line that is faithfully following. Srila Prabhupada came in order to reestablish that and to spread it all over the world, based on Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and the chanting of the holy name. So Krishna comes himself in order to rectify the situation, as he explains in the next verse, which we should probably read because they go together. Any questions on this particular verse? Krishna comes to help us. Go ahead, Dhamma. Oh, the mic. We have the mic. Yeah. Sorry, I'm forgetting that. Uh-oh. Sounds pretty loud. But that's all right. You need loud. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
I thought it was very interesting how you mentioned the 3 words Shastra, Shastra, and Shishya all have in common the root.
Root. Dhatu, it's called.
Oh, okay. Dhatu is control. And now, we have this topmost literature, Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And, here you gave the example how Arjuna wasn't really able to receive Krishna's knowledge in full until he surrendered as a Shishya.
Prapanna, yeah.
So we have this very sacred literature, and then here we have the whole thing is just like a counselor taking counsel from Krishna, who's like a counselor, right?
Counselor. Yeah.
And how there's that danger, just relevant for all. Anyone who wants to make advancement in anything, in any art, in any field, in any science, there's some internship.
There is
or apprenticeship.
Yes, exactly.
And so, but there could be a danger, as we know, Arjuna was too familiar with Krishna as a friend. It wasn't really relating, and relating to him as a student, and him guru. So, can you explain the dangers of being too familiar with those?
Well, there's that old, phrase which is always kind of a shocker when you think of familiarity breeds contempt. Oftentimes it's not as obvious as contempt. It's just like it leans toward what we call the niyamagraha side, which is kind of failing to see the urgency of strictly following. The nature of the material world and the modes of nature is that it kind of erodes your sense of urgency and your seriousness. This is one of the diseases. And that's why, the Sangha is so important, association with devotees who are serious and strict so that you can keep your edge in Krishna consciousness. Because it's very much kind of swimming upstream here. I mean, the tendency all around us is anything but accepting this kind of instruction. The material mind will block you, and material intelligence will give you all kinds of reasons why you don't have to do this, or you don't have to do that, or you should and can do this now, even though we couldn't before. In other words, it's very tricky, and that's why Prabhupada set up this. The programs, for those who are serious, where there's a certain time to get up, there's a certain time to use the early hours for meditation on the holy name, together, kirtan together. Something I really appreciated over my little, I don't want to say sabbatical, more like a marathon, is that just missing, our kirtans. I was more or less holed up over there working on this marathon book, the Vyasa Puja book, and how important it is to come together and chant Hare Krishna. I mean, I'm chanting my rounds, of course. There's always that. But the Yuga Dharma is Sankirtan. And you come together and chant, and it does so many things on so many levels. And if nothing else, you just get a glimpse of transcendence. And you get, Krishna in his most relatable and accessible form. That 45-minute kirtan before we actually started the procession. I don't know. You were there for most of that. Oh, yeah, okay. But it was just real nectar. Just be able to chant right in front of Jagannath. So we should never forget that. I'm telling you, I've been around so long, and I see so many devotees. That's the heart of the movement. You look back. I mean, one of the nice things you can do if you're interested, you look back at the old BTGs. There's this. If you have a computer, there's something called 60 Years of Back to Godhead magazine, and it's actual PDFs. So you can see the pictures, not just the articles. And you look at it, oh, wow, look at all those devotees, how blissful they look, you know. And there's a lot of kirtan pictures. There was a point at which Prabhupada said, Sankirtan pictures in the BTG, and this is like, 1968, 69, as many as possible. Because he saw that this was, a unique element that none of the other yoga things have or anything. Here's devotees, on the street in bliss, giving Krishna to everybody. And it's just like a phenomenon. It's beyond anything. And I was thinking as we were chanting there for 45 minutes, and you had that whole marching band of these kids, every year. And what they were thinking, they're looking over, what are these guys doing? We don't want to play our instruments like they want to play their instruments. We're carrying this big trombone around, and we're hoping I can put it down. So. But how purifying it was. They're hearing these long kirtans, 45-minute kirtan. They don't know, but it's... So it's dangerous to not take the structured program seriously, and realize that chanting together, hearing together, being together, and glorifying Krishna together is the essence of how you stay strong. And of course, doing it with Prabhupada in the present, through his books. We have these great books we can read aloud together and discuss. Maybe we can start arranging that. I mean, I'm reading Vyasa Puja books, and a lot of them talking about how we have this reading circle and we're reading together. It's a little different than the class. It's more like the Bhakti Chakra. We just read and discuss and learn a verse together. Speaking of verses, did you hear the K verse yet? You didn't hear it. This is from Govinda Virodavali. This is quite amazing thing. Karne, you listen to the K's. Karne kalpata karnika kalikaya kamahita kantibi. Kantanam kalakinchatam kasaliham ki lada dear kirtibi. Kuvan kudan kani keshitataya kaishora van kotisha. Kopi kaukata kangsa kashtakata Krishna kriya kangshitam. I don't think you can do that in English. So it's all about karne. So Krishna is wearing these beautiful little karne coral flowers as earrings. They're very common because they're fragrant and they're beautiful. Karne kalpata karne kalikaya kaimahita kantibi. And he's beautiful, just like Cupid. Kaimai kan. Kantanam kilakinchitam. He causes the kilakinchita ecstasy to blossom in the hearts of his beloved gopis. There's a certain kind of ecstasy, and his glorification is an ocean of nectar. Kila the Diyakirtibi. When he was preparing to kill Kamsa, he was a big demon. He was a bad guy, so he needed to get killed. He was prancing around like a young lion, and he became extremely angry. Kotisha Kopi means 10 million times angry at Kamsa, who tormented his parents and everything, And he caused him, Kamsa, who belongs to the Kukura dynasty, which is, Kukura means dog. He caused him great suffering. May that Krishna fulfill all of our spiritual desires. K's. Then there's an M. Madoresha madudi mayamadava manadi mattalika mugdha mama manana mohana modamada yamanaso maha maha moham. O Master of Mathura, lovely Lord of Goddess Shri, who plays such maddening melodies upon your Murali, O Cupid's charmer, please redeem a life till now misspent by joyfully destroying my extreme bewilderment. We can pray like that. So this is all from Govinda. The book begins, it says, anyone who reads this book pleases Krishna. At the end of the book it says, anyone who reads this book has pleased Krishna. It's a wonderful book. Hare Krishna. So it's 8:10. We should get ready for the kirtan. Can any of you stay? Okay, we have a kirtan. You've chanted Hare Krishna before with us? Okay, we're going to have the deities will open. You'll get to see Radha Giridhari and Gauranitai and Jagannath. And we'll have a kirtan. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.